Thank you, everyone, for joining in today. Good evening to all of you. I know we are in unprecedented times and things are changing overnight. I know there have been some developments back home, and some of you might be looking at alternatives as we speak, as the cases have started to rise again in different states in India. Having said that, the beauty of technology is it lets us progress, and here we are today using that technology and hopefully talking about that technology in the session. My name is Dhruv Mohan. I represent the School of Continuing Studies at York University. This is surely not my first time interacting with students from Chitkara University. Chitkara University is very close to me. The reason being it's a prestigious partner for us in my current role, and I've worked with them in the previous roles that I held as well. Quite a few of your seniors were able to go to other top universities through the partnerships that we've built. And in my current role here with York, we intend to do the same. So the intent of today's session is to bring opportunities to you. I've got Sean Woodhead with me, who is the program manager for backend and blockchain program that we run at the School of Continuing Studies. And without further delay, I would like to give the floor to Sean to take us forward.
Thanks, Drew. And good evening, everyone at Chitkara University. Before I begin, I just wanted to reiterate, as Drew mentioned, just how important our relationship is with Chitkara University and each of you. I'm only due, so even though we're having a number of information sessions between now and the summer, I told Drew that I'm really busy, so I only have time to do 3 of these. And he was adamant that Chitkara University needs to be invited to one of these. So this is a dedicated session for you. And I really do hope that as we go through tonight's session, that I am able to give you a lot of the information that you require in order to make the best decision for you on your next educational program. And at the end, I'll also be providing you with contact information on who you can reach out with specific types of questions. But without further ado, let's get into it. But perhaps first, before we get into it, just a minor housekeeping item. So for tonight's information session, you've all been muted, only so that we cut down on the ambient noise. And then you will perhaps have questions that come to mind. I had mentioned that we'll provide you with contact information at the end of tonight's session. However, if we do have time at the end for a quick Q&A, then what I would like is if you have questions that come to mind throughout the information session, just go to the questions tab on the GoToWebinar panel. I believe on your side, it should also be right underneath polls. So just populate that area with any questions that come to mind. If we do have time at the end, I will respond to as many of those questions as I can. And then if there are questions that remain that I've not been able to answer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide, after the session's over, I'm going to type out responses to each of those questions, and then we'll share those responses with you, okay? So I presume that most of you are checking out the information session because you're giving serious consideration to either upskilling specifically within software and blockchain development. You're thinking that perhaps as a career, you want to get into the development space. So you're definitely in the right place if that's what you're thinking. You may even just be curious and you're trying to plan out your next steps for your education, your career. So I would say that, you know, these motivations, as well as other motivations about perhaps a particular destination to live, to study, to work, that's also a normal motivation. So regardless of your plans, though, you're likely to have at least some point some similar questions or areas of interest for more information. And what I've done for tonight's session is I've tried to structure this information session around a lot of those questions that we receive. And the reason that we've made the title and the central theme of tonight's session around Toronto as a tech hub is because earlier we did get a lot of questions about you know, how does Toronto rank in terms of emerging tech hubs? What are job numbers like? So we do want that to be a central focus of tonight. And just a quick note about me before we begin. I haven't really introduced myself yet. So my name's Sean Woodhead, and I'm the program manager of the postgraduate certificate in backend and blockchain development, as well as a series of other digital technology programs here at York University School of Continuing Studies. As part of this work, I oversee all program-related matters pertaining to curriculum, to instruction, and strategic initiatives with a team of 26 instructors. Across my 13 years of experience in Canadian higher education, I've served in various roles at the national, provincial, institutional, and program levels. My passion really is squarely on identifying local and national skills shortages, and then connecting those skills shortages with industry-connected programs and industry-connected programs that are designed to also nurture the success of our students. And so some of my work, most notably with the certificate in machine learning, has also been recognized nationally. So I had won an award, a national award last year for the work that was done in machine learning. And the reason that I'm mentioning that is because when I've gone through development and delivery of this blockchain program, I followed the same process, the same principles, the same sort of design or methodology to the design as I did with machine learning. And so I also expect that within the coming years that this program will also be a contender for that same national award. Outside of my work at York University, I am currently the Vice President of the Ontario Council for University Lifelong Learning. And then also, I'm an academic liaison to the Canadian Blockchain Olympiad. And for those of you who don't know, there's an international blockchain Olympiad for students and graduates of blockchain programs around the world, and as well for blockchain developers at different levels in their career. And so the Canadian Blockchain Olympiad, they hold competitions in Canada for then the winner or the winners of the Canadian competition. They then form Team Canada, and then they go and they compete in the International Blockchain Olympiad. So I'm an advisor to that group. And then for those of you who decide to come into this program, you would also have an opportunity to, if you so choose, to compete for potentially representing Team Canada at the International Blockchain Olympiad. Also, I'm a strategist of academic and professional engagement for DreamX Education, and specifically DreamX Education. They provide academic and professional supports to international students from around the world who are studying in Canada. I completed my MEd in Educational Leadership and Policy at the University of Toronto, and I'm currently writing my thesis for a PhD education at York University. All right. So now that's me, and we don't have enough time for all 39 attendees to each introduce themselves. So what I've done instead is I've created just a quick little poll so that you could at least share what your current program is, or if you're not currently full-time in a program, if you recently completed one, then you could respond to this as well. I'm going to launch that poll now, and I'll give you about maybe 30 seconds or so to respond. Okay. Okay, 5 seconds. Okay, very good. So this is very reassuring as a program manager who will be reviewing the applications of those from today's information session who decide to apply. 93% of you are currently in a computer science program. And I would say that computer science, and then perhaps followed closely by engineering or a BTech, those tend to be, those make up the bulk of the applications that I see. Now, having said that, there are also some individuals who are currently taking the blockchain program who did not come from that type of background. So those who did not come from one of the more obvious STEM programs that would align very tightly with back-end of blockchain development, I found that to make their application quite strong, amongst other things, what they did have some prior education in specifically in programming, and ideally in Java and JavaScript. And then for those who, and then also if they didn't have maybe the more traditional background that we would typically be looking for, they did a really good job on their statement of interest for coming into the program, where they then shared with me what their educational and professional background might be, and why a movement into backend and blockchain development would help them achieve their career goals. Okay, but very good. So I'm going to put that back away, and we will continue. So Toronto. This city is a hub of activity with lots of opportunity to work, explore, have fun. If you join our program, this or one of the neighboring cities around Toronto is where you would most likely live. And as for myself, I'm not originally from Toronto. I'm from a smaller city in Ontario that has about 50,000 people. So by comparison, very small. I've lived in Toronto for 13 years now. And I will say that after moving to Toronto, I've been really hard pressed to leave and go live anywhere else. It's such an amazing city. Now, before I describe some specifics around the labor market, I figured it might be helpful to just briefly describe what may make this city so special. So Toronto is Canada's largest city. We have a population of around 6.2 million citizens. And on top of us being the largest Canadian city, the Economist magazine actually ranks Toronto as the #1 global city to live in the world, and then followed second by another Canadian city, Montreal. So Toronto is also an incredibly diverse city to live in. There's over 200 languages that are spoken in the city, and 45% of residents have a mother tongue that is not English or French. And as many of you will know, French is the second of two official languages here in Canada, the first being English. So while Cantonese, Spanish, Italian are the most widely spoken non-English or French languages, it's also noteworthy that Punjabi, Urdu, and Tamil are each languages that also have over 100,000 speakers each in Toronto. Perhaps most importantly, Toronto is also incredibly safe. So we know, of course, with really large cities, sometimes that also means that there's a lot more crime in those cities. But in Canada, Toronto ranks as the #1 safest, or sorry, in North America, Toronto ranks as the #1 safest, and it's the 6th safest city in the world, and that's according to the Safe Cities Index. Okay, so now I shared with you briefly sort of what I think and what many may think make Toronto so special. But let's get to the labor market. Okay, so I'm now going to try to just briefly paint a picture for why Toronto is such a great place to work, and specifically for tech work. So all the things that I mentioned that makes Toronto a great place to live offers an awesome foundation of being a great place to work and study. So this is perhaps what has really helped Toronto emerge as this new tech hub. So the CBRE, they've reported that Toronto is the fastest growing tech community in the world, and they're the #3 tech hub in North America. And with being a growing tech hub comes a need for a wide variety of technical roles. And this is, of course, inclusive of software developers and blockchain developers. So exactly how many developers are in Toronto? So I couldn't find the exact number of how many developer jobs are currently filled in the city. I'm sure that the number is really high. But what I can report on are the number of new job postings for developers in Toronto. So in the last year, there's been over 7,700 new job postings for developers. And by comparison, just to give you something to benchmark this against, data science and machine learning is also a growing area. Lots of new jobs in Toronto in that space. There were just over 500 new jobs for machine learning related roles in the last year. So just over 500 for machine learning, and compare that to over 7,700 for software and blockchain developers, right? And then in terms of salaries, entry-level salaries are typically somewhere in the 70s, so between 70 to 79,000. And then also noteworthy is that, so blockchain is, as we all know, it's still very much an early adoption, but it is moving upwards along the early adoption slope. Randstad, they had reported that that they saw a 374% increase in blockchain developer demand. And you might know that Randstad, they're a multinational human resource consultancy firm, and so they've declared blockchain to be one of the top 10 emerging fields in Toronto. So now you've learned some of the things that make Toronto a great place to live. You've also heard some information about being an emerging tech hub and what that means. And I've also given you some information on specifics around the labor market for developers. So how does one enter this labor market? I'd say at a high level, entry into the labor market is fairly straightforward for a developer. So for each of you, the steps you would take, I would say, is that you apply to the program, get your student visa, you're admitted and take the program. And then as you're going through the program, you're working on experiential learning projects in every single course. So even though there's a small amount of a more classical university experience between the instructor and the students, our instructors have been very mindful that this needs to be an application-based, a practice-oriented program. So there's a lot of what we can maybe call lab work, but as I mentioned, there is a real project that you're working on in each course. So through the program, you're building a portfolio of experience so that when you're meeting with a prospective employer in an interview, and they don't care as much about what credentials you have. What they're really interested in knowing is, tell me what you've done, tell me what you can do. So with that said, oh, I'm changing gears here just for a sec. What I also wanted to say was that as you move out of entry level and you're becoming a more seasoned developer, what we've also seen in Toronto is that the average salary as of last year was around $87,000. So we've touched upon the labor market, we've touched upon what entry into that labor market looks like, and then I also shared with you how the portfolio of projects that you're working on, which will also include a capstone project that I'm going to get to in a few minutes, that really is what you would want to leverage in an interview with a prospective employer. Okay, so changing gears a bit to why did we build this program to begin with? There's all sorts of different things that we could build. What made backend and blockchain development so important to us? Well, you might have noticed if you have looked at the programs that we have on offer in our School of Continuing Studies, we have a lot of programs that are sitting at the forefront of tech. So with our programs, we do aim to address areas of high skills demand. And early in our process of development, we engage with several industry leaders, and we engage with hiring managers. We engage with individuals who may fit the profile of who we're expecting would take our program. And what we do is we're trying to get us, when we're engaging with these different stakeholder groups, we're trying to get a sense of what is really the demand for this occupation. If someone was to take this program, what do they need to graduate our program having demonstrated? What skills do they need to have in order for an employer to want to hire them? And then we also, as I mentioned, we also engage with profile or with the audience who fits the profile of someone who would take the program, because we also want to design it in a way that as best as possible would fit the shared needs of all students who fit that profile. So in my opinion, at least, this is such a crucial component of making sure that our program is a program that will have real value. And when I say real value, what I'm saying is that it is a program that adequately, proficiently prepares its students to then be ready for the future of work when they're graduates and they're out doing all sorts of great things after they've graduated from the program. Now, core technical skills are a big part of that, but also we want to produce graduates that we would consider to have top of the T skills. So by top of the T, what I'm saying is, or what I'm referring to is a breadth of cross-functional skills or transversal skills that are relevant no matter what type of job you're in. So if you're picturing a T, the vertical are all those core skills that would be very related to being a developer. And then the breadth of skill up at the top, those are the things like active listening, persuasion, negotiation, empathy, those different types of things that really you need to be fairly competent in those areas as well to do well in a business, to do well in really in any work environment. So also I wanted to mention that when we see an opportunity to lead, then we absolutely want to seize that. So when we saw, like when we were engaging with industry, employers, and they're saying that yes, there's a very real need for this program, we also saw that there was no other university in Canada that was yet offering a similar program. And so we took that as a great opportunity to come to be first, which sometimes can be a bit scary when you're the first one, but it gives us a great opportunity to lead. And so I believe we've done just that. Now, York University really has undergone a period of rapid transformation. We are one of the fastest growing comprehensive universities in Canada. It did not happen overnight. There's been a lot of change in the last decade, and change for good. So we really have transformed. Now, briefly, I'm going to describe what your experience will be like moving through the program. But before I do so, we have poll question number 2 that I'm going to fire off. And I'm mindful each of these things could be very important to you. And what I'm interested in seeing is, of these, what is perhaps the most important thing to you? Five seconds left. Okay. Very interesting. I'm going to share this with you right now. So what I really like seeing here is that they're across this group. We do have different students with different motivations, but it looks like most people who are attending today, that they fall into one of 3 groups. So having access to experienced instructors, the ability to network with students and working professionals, and then as well, creating their own blockchain business. Very interesting. I'm going to make sure that that I try to, well, the experienced instructor piece, that's going to come out crystal clear closer to the end of today's session, or tonight's session. But the networking with students and working professionals, that piece I'll be able to highlight on a little bit, as well as how you might go about creating your own blockchain business. Okay, so I'm gonna put that back and we will continue. So some features of the program. So you will have an opportunity in the capstone course to get paired up with a business, or you can work on your own business venture through our entrepreneurship stream. I'll go a little bit more in detail on that in just a minute. And then some other features about the program. Classes typically run Mondays to Thursday evenings from 6:45 p.m. to 9:45 p.m. Toronto time. And then what we've done is we've put a 1-week break in between each course. And the reason that we've done that is because, of course, having class Monday to Thursday nights for 3 weeks in a row, that's a bit intense. And then as well, there's a lot, like there's assignments, projects. And so we thought it was really important to put that 1-week break in between each course, just so you can have a bit of a breather. And in the off chance that you didn't get, say, your final project in on time, then you still have a bit of buffer zone where even if you're going to get late penalties on it, at least you can take that week to then finish up anything you didn't finish, and then you don't need to go. Oh, sorry, lost my train of thought. Now I have a cat that's coming over here. Yeah, so then that way you get to work on your projects. There's no domino effect of then having like the next course begin. You still have outstanding work in the previous. So yeah, and based on the feedback that we've gotten from students this year, they really appreciate having that 1-week break. And then, of course, this is also important to note that the program does qualify for satisfying the educational requirement for the postgraduate work permit. So that's very important for many people. Now, the majority of people who are attending today, they indicated that networking with students and with working professionals is very important to them. So what we try to do across our digital technology programs is offer students opportunities to go to conferences. And with COVID-19, those conferences have been virtual. However, when we're back to having classes on campus in hopefully what is a post-COVID or close to post-COVID world, then I expect absolutely that we would resume with having students actually go to a physical conference. But on the networking piece as well, what I should mention is that across some of the courses, we've made sure that we're bringing industry leaders and even in a few hiring managers, we're bringing them into the program. We're bringing them into the program so that there can be two-way discussion between students and those and the guests that are coming in. And I would say that based on how things have gone in the last year, students have really cherished those opportunities to get to have that two-way communication with these industry leaders. And then, of course, these classes, the students really do sort of form their own community of learning, and we also see that this also creates friendships. And as most people who are graduating from the program are going to then go and become they're going to get into the development community, the students that you're moving through the program with are also forming the beginnings of your professional network as well. So that's important to mention. So the capstone projects. So I would say sometime around near the end of the third to last course, and as well, or if not then at the beginning of the second to last course, students are going to be surveyed on, do they want a capstone project, or do they want a capstone project with a business, or do they want to work on an independent project where it's not with a business, or do they want to build their own startup? And if they want to build their own startup, they're going to do that through what we call the entrepreneurship stream. So for the entrepreneurship stream, the project work that a student would be completing for the private and consortium blockchain for enterprise course, which is the second to last course, as well as the project work for the capstone course. What they're really doing instead is they're working on their business, and they're putting together a proof of concept for whatever blockchain solution it is that they're developing. In doing that, they are also getting the advice from our instructional team on the more technical components of that work. And then also, they are getting matched up with an entrepreneur in residence through Innovation York, through the Y Space. So an entrepreneur in residence at York University, that's going to be someone who has started up and successfully run either one or multiple startups of their own. And then they come on as an entrepreneur in residence because they really want to help nurture the entrepreneurial capacity of students. It's a great initiative. Last year, we had a total of 9 individuals who either went through the formal entrepreneurship stream, or they went through something else where they're still just doing their regular coursework not in blockchain, but in other programs where they're doing their regular coursework, but they were also getting paired up with Innovation York to help to build up their own venture. But I'm really encouraged by the number of people who ended up indicating tonight that they're really interested in exploring that opportunity further. I should mention that there is an additional cost for doing the entrepreneurship stream. That cost is $1,200. And that's really, it's paying for the entrepreneur in residence time as well as administrative costs for Innovation York. So I have another short video to share. And as we learned with the last video, you're not likely going to be able to hear this, but what I'm hoping that you'll see in this video is at least an illustration of what online learning looks like in our school. And as we're going to do with the first video that I shared, with this video as well, we'll share with you the link for this so that after the session is done, at whatever time's convenient for you, you can go back and watch it with the audio. This is also a fairly short clip.
Sean, sorry to interrupt. Given that there are not much written in the video, it might get a little bit hard for them to follow.
That's all right. It's almost done.
Sure.
So what you'll see here is we're using Zoom, and with Zoom, there's a lot of engagement opportunities that are built into this. So during a Zoom class, you may see some Zoom polling, and sort of similar to the polling that I've done during this session today. There's also breakout rooms, so you're not always together as one group, but the instructor will break you out into smaller lab groups so that you can collaborate with people in smaller group settings. And then as well, there's share screen capabilities and the like. And what I'm actually going to go to now is I'm going to share with you really briefly some of the feedback that we've received from students. And just keeping in mind too, that this is feedback that students have provided while they're going through this year's backend and blockchain development program, 100% online. So one student had indicated, great instructor, professional and well knowledgeable about blockchain. I enjoyed the online format. I think it was better experience than the on-campus classroom format, especially because we could clearly see the instructor's screen while he was explaining code. Another student writes, great course. Professor taught us how to think very deeply about each topic. It was great to have so many guest speakers. Another student writes, labs were great. The online format for the course was great. Overall, it was a good learning experience. Another student writes, this is second to last one, another student writes, a good course on fundamentals of blockchain. The instructor was very knowledgeable and covered many topics, explaining everything in detail. It was good to get hands-on experience with creating our own blockchain. Last student writes, and this is for a different course, Govind Mohan is a really good instructor, and we learned a lot in his course. So I'm sharing these with you because online learning can look very different at different universities and in different programs. And I am very proud of the work that this instructional team has done to make sure that we have an online learning environment that is engaging, it's interactive, and ultimately still supports the success of our students. So this is not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, but I wanted to share with you just a few tools and applications, platforms that we're using in the program. And I just wanted to point out as well that students are not running completely locally, that we do use a cloud solution. And when we were considering what cloud solution to use, we did go with IBM. And the reason that we went with IBM was largely because of the inclusion of Hyperledger, and specifically Hyperledger Fabric in the program. Now that comes closer to the end, that's not at the beginning. And the reason that we went with Hyperledger is because right now that is absolutely the most popular enterprise solution in Canada for private blockchain. Our instructional team. Okay, I'm just checking time. We have about, let's see, we have 12 minutes left. Okay, So I'm not going to go through, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of the bios, but maybe just to highlight some of the most important things. So Thompson, who's the instructor in the first course, which is an intro to backend and blockchain development. Thompson's worked on various blockchain projects and initiatives, and that work has ranged from work with governments to different agencies to startups, and also with larger private firms in Canada. Tarun Sharma, so Tarun has over 12 years of experience in IT, and he's held different positions from being a developer and founder to in a chief technology officer, and he codes in over 10 different programming languages, and he's done a lot of work in software engineering, product development, and payment integration. Now, Victor is a leader in the Toronto blockchain community, but he doesn't come from the developer background. He actually his background is as a financial economist and an investment analyst with over 20 years of experience, and spans things like multiple asset classes, including real estate, infrastructure, fixed income. Afaf, he's a seasoned developer. He has 12 years of experience and across various technology stacks. And then Govin, he's a blockchain developer and researcher. He's been in the space since 2014. And then we have Dhruvan. He's an adjunct professor as well as a curriculum developer at another institution in Toronto, and he's also involved with our program. He's done a lot of work in creating and delivering content for full stack development, for smart contracts, decentralized applications. And Dhruvan provides smart solutions to hardware and firmware, designing needs of the pharmaceutical and electricity utility companies in India. He also runs a solo software consulting firm in Canada. And what that firm does, they have a range of development services that they offer, but most particularly, they focus on decentralized applications as well as Solidity smart contracts. Saber Amini, he's an engineering professional with a PhD in electronics from the University of Toronto. And his area of expertise is in embedded sensor systems with a focus on software visualization and storage of sensor data. And then back a few years ago, he started getting more involved in private blockchain solutions. And then lastly, Andy is a senior technology leader who is passionate in developing innovative solutions with using blockchain technology. And he has over 15 years of experience in finance and fintech. And he's currently the CTO and co-founder of Aquanow, which is a fast-growing fintech startup, which provides digital asset trading platform, which provides digital assets trading platform and infrastructure. So admission requirements, very few, but each important in their own right. So most applicants that have applied, and I mentioned this at the beginning when you did the poll on what program you're in or what program have you most recently taken. So most applicants, they either have a computer science degree or a Bachelor of Technology or something similar to that. I will say that if you don't have a degree like that, it's fine. It doesn't mean that you're going to be disqualified from consideration. We do want there to be some sort of tech connection between your degree and your application. If you don't have that, then what I would strongly recommend is then in your statement of interest, you need to detail where have you gotten some of the foundational skills and knowledge, and most specifically your programming experience that would help support your success throughout the program, okay? And so that segues nicely into JavaScript or other coding. So it is best if you come into this program with experience using JavaScript. If you don't, that's okay. I would recommend that then you have high proficiency with some other language and that you also clearly indicate that in your statement of interest. Last but not least, the English language requirement. So for those who don't have 1 year of experience in post-secondary education with English as the language of instruction, then we're most likely looking at then the need for you to demonstrate your English language proficiency with IELTS or with TOEFL, and we have other tests that you can also use, but IELTS is certainly one of the more popular ones. You need an IELTS score of 6.5 with no score less than 6.5. Okay. So how much does this program cost? So the cost to enroll is $20,995. And this is comparable in price to many of the 1-year certificates that are offered in our province of Ontario. And you do have the added benefit of completing this program up to 4 months faster than the nearest competitor program. And you can apply for the postgraduate work permit just like those other programs. The application deadline is currently set for September 8th. Having said that, I'd strongly advise that you get your application in by June. There is a small chance that this program could sell out. And once the program sells out and all the seats are filled, then we're only putting together a wait list at that point. So likewise, there have not been any decisions that have been made yet on whether or not we're starting on campus or online. As Drew mentioned at the beginning, we're still in times of COVID, and so we're just trying to play this by ear. But what I want to reassure for those who are maybe wondering, well, gee, I don't know if it's starting online or if it's going to be on campus, and the uncertainty is a bit unsettling. The students who took the program and are currently in the program now, they were in a similar, perhaps even more ambiguous situation than where we're finding ourselves at right now. And so the students who did decide, yep, I'm going to go into the program even though it's online, they found it to be a great learning experience, and many thanks to the Government of Canada, then their completion of the program online, it still meant that they were able to use the program for application for a postgraduate work permit. Now, I also wanted to mention that even though right now the official deadline to apply would be September 8th, that's not going to work if this does end up if we end up deciding that this is going to be starting on campus. So I really do recommend it, once you've decided to apply, to start to get all of your documents in order, to make sure that you get the application in as soon as possible. We've been able to turn around most application decisions within a few weeks, but then also by getting the application in earlier, you give yourself more control and more time to adequately prepare for the beginning of the program. So if you have any remaining questions, then you can reach out. You can reach out to Michael Kasiba. Michael is the continuing studies advisor for this program. You can reach him at continue@yorku.ca. If you have registration questions or issues, you can reach out to the registration team at regscs@yorku.ca. Now, also, and most especially because,
I think we might have lost Sean for a second. Just as we are on this slide, I'd also like to mention in the past, we've collaborated with the International Relations Office. So please feel free to connect with the International Relations Office, whether it's Naresh or Sangeet ma'am. We've worked closely with them in the past. They would have the capability to help you through the entire application process. So absolutely, you can write to the Reg team, but even within your institute, you can absolutely connect with the international relations team, and they will help you through the entire process. So that should not be a problem. And I think till he's able to join back, I would also like to mention that we've done this in the past. As I was mentioning, we've had multiple students come through these partnerships to different institutes, uh, and we will be more than happy to help anyone who's part of this webinar in the same fashion. The webinar is being recorded, and we will be able to share the recording with you, or with anyone who was not able to join us today. So with that, I think we were talking about technology throughout the session, uh, and it can fail us anytime. I just got a message from Sean that his computer froze. And it has shut down. Uh, we are almost towards the end of this session, so thank you so much. As we mentioned before, we will go through the questions. If there are any further questions, you can probably also write to us. Sean's email is on the screen right now. And as I mentioned, you can always connect with the international team at Chitkara University. They're very helpful, very knowledgeable, and I work very closely with them. I've done that in the past as well. Uh, so I know it's later in the evening back in India. We wouldn't want to keep you waiting. We would want to thank you again for your time, uh, and probably end the session uh, and urging you to stay safe. I know these are tough times, but that shall pass too. Thank you again, everyone, and good luck. We've given you multiple touch points. If there is anything you need further support with, please feel free to connect with us. And we will be sharing the recording from this session with you through email communication. So thanks again. Have a good evening and good luck.